I wanted to go over the top 8 solar generators that I have been able to find, and I've been doing research on this for years. And so I've made this comparison chart. Now, on here, these are just the top 8. If you go to my website, poweredportablesolar.com, you can actually see all the different solar generators. There's quite a few of them, and they'll be all splayed out on this comparison chart. So stick around for this video. We're going to go over in detail all these top 8 solar generators. Now this video could be exceptionally long if we went into every single detail about these different solar generators. The ratings that I've given them here are extremely good, good, okay, and bad. And so basically, for the most part, the way that it goes is the more bads that it has, the lower down the list it is. But there may be certain reasons why that may not be the case, for example, on this GoalZero Yeti 3000X. And we'll get into that here in a second. Obviously, the Titan is the absolute best. The reason that is because it's got a good battery voltage, it has a 3000 watt inverter, and beyond that, the biggest thing is it has 2 MPPT charge controllers for a max solar input of 2000 watts. Now, because of the solar input parameter, I can actually put easily 4000 watts worth of panels. And this is actually what I've done at my off-grid cabin. I have 4000 watts of solar. And what that allows me to do is over panel, so that way I can actually make more power throughout the day. But in a 5-hour period, this pretty much guarantees that I can make at least 10,000 watt hours in that 5 hours. It uses a common Anderson power pole connector. I can easily charge the system in 2 hours with 2 batteries and 2000 watts of solar on it. It is heavy at 66 pounds. It's actually one of the heaviest ones here, but the top section, the power module as it's called, and the battery actually split apart so that way it's easy to transport. It's the only one out there besides the Flex that has done that. The Flex kind of copied the Titan in that regard. It's a really cool design that they've been able to do that. It has the most outlets, and it's the only one with an RV plug. And this RV plug is actually rated to 25 amps output, which is incredible. That beats all of these, of course, because it has the RV plug, but the next best one is 18 amps output. The batteries will sit for up to 5 years and hold a charge. The warranty length on the system is 2 years. Each battery is 1 year. That's just to account for people who mistreat their batteries. You always want to leave them fully charged. You can expand this system with as many batteries as you want. It is a 24 volt system, so you do have to have batteries set up in 24 volts if you're going to connect them externally, or you just keep adding Titan batteries as well, which are actually more affordable and much easier to use than most lithium batteries. Its X factor is obviously that it can stack the batteries. It's got expandable solar up to 2000 watts. It's a huge battery capacity. Its biggest weakness is its weight, but it overcomes that weakness by being able to split that apart. Now, in second place is the Maxoak Bluetti AC200P. Now, this is not the Indiegogo version. The Indiegogo version was the AC200, and that one was having a bunch of issues, so it got updated by the AC200P. It now has a 2000 watt hour battery, which is great. It's a 50 volt battery, which is also good. And the battery can output the 2000 watts that the inverter is rated to. But the inverter peak, it says in their user manual it's 4800 watts, but in all the testing that I've done, as soon as I go over 2500 watts, it goes kaput. And so I had to put this in here, even though their website and user manual says differently. This has been my personal experience. It's not greater than 2500 watts. And that would be pretty on par with looking at the other Maxoak items. You can see here that the peak is actually not much more than the inverter continuous output. But this has 3,500 cycles, which is incredible. It's the best one for cycles on the market, and that's simply because it's a lithium iron phosphate battery. Now it too has a wide range on the solar input parameter, which is great. It has only 700 watt solar input, which is pretty okay. It's good for the battery size, but it's not expandable. But I can over panel it with up to 1400 watts, which is going to give me more power throughout the day. It doesn't have common connectors, which is probably my biggest gripe about it. It can be charged in as little as about 3 hours, but this thing is heavy. It is extremely heavy to move around by itself. It is difficult. It's got plenty of plugs, no RV plug though, and it does have a 6-month shelf life. So about once every 6 months, I need to pull it out and top off the batteries. It is not expandable. It's got a really nice screen, is its X factor, and it's got a 25 amp 12 volt plug, which is unheard of for any other system. The biggest issues though are obviously the weight and the screen calibration. The first time I opened this up, I had many issues with it reading the battery percentage correctly. And of course, I don't like more or less proprietary connectors. In third place is the Elec Hive 2200 made by Zero Breeze. The thing that you need to know about this one is it is not released yet. At this time of filming this video, they still got a few months until this comes out. And the only prototype version that has been tested did not test well. And you'll want to visit my website, poweredportablesolar.com, for that review for those details. But you can see it's got a larger battery than the AC200P. This is technically just lithium NMC, and so it would just be lithium ion. But this is different that they're not using the 18650 battery cells, they're actually using car style battery cells. And that allows them to make it smaller and save weight. And that's one of the most unique things about the Elec Hive 2200. Now, it does have a good inverter at 2200 watts. It's not a full twice as powerful peak. The biggest issue is that it doesn't have a big life cycle. When compared to the Titan and the AC200P, it only has 1,000 cycles, which isn't horrible. It's just under 3 years of daily use. It's obviously better than something like the Goal Zero. For some reason, only 1,000 cycles. It does have 800 watt solar input and uses a common Anderson PowerPole connector. So it can be charged in about 3 hours. And it's supposed to be 34 pounds, but actual testing has shown it to be about 42 pounds. So it is higher than advertised. It's got decent outlets, no RV plug, and they said almost a year's worth of shelf life. They would not give me a direct answer, and so I just put 9 months. This is still untested and unverified, and their 2-year warranty is not for sure. For those who use the Indiegogo campaign like I did, we get upgraded to the 2-year warranty. There has been no clarification if that will be for anyone else who buys it outside of the Indiegogo campaign. So it may just be a 1-year warranty. It's not expandable. It is lightweight for the capacity, and they did have a special type of battery that they're using, still lithium NMC, but not the 18650 cells. The biggest issue is it has lower cycles, and the proprietary connectors talked about here, in addition to the Anderson PowerPole connectors, they will be using an EC8 fast charging connector, and they also have an additional connector that's just meant for their Zero Breeze air conditioning unit. But if you don't have their air conditioner, you're essentially paying for that extra feature and not being able to use it. Now, those are the top 3. The Titan has been out for well over a year. It has been tested and tested and tested and has done phenomenal. It has been running for almost a year at my off-grid cabin without any issues, and it's been working great. We've been renting it out, and we've had hundreds of people stay there. No issues. The Bluetti AC200P has been great, but because it cannot expand, it's not something that I can consider for my off-grid cabin. But it would be good for emergency backup power for running something like a fridge and a freezer, or maybe a fridge and a CPAP machine. But I highly, highly recommend getting at least 700 watts in panels. The Elec Hive 2200, we just really don't know yet. This is number 3 based on its current specs, but that could change once I actually get it in my hands, because I did order this on Indiegogo, and we will see if it's actually any good. The Goal Zero Yeti 3000X, you can see all the specs here. It's decent, it's not great, it's extremely heavy, but you do get the cart with it, is my understanding. It can charge in a day, but it is difficult to be running equipment and get it charged in a single day. But by far, it has the biggest base battery out of all of the other units here. And it has a decent sized inverter, but those life cycles are just way too low. They really should be having more outlets on it, and especially with the battery this size, I would really have loved to see an RV plug. And I've tested this with the Goal Zeros. They, after 3 months, really do need to be charged up. One of the coolest things that it has going for it, though, is the Yeti Link in the phone app. You can actually monitor this from your phone and connect it to an alternator charger, which is a very unique feature, and that's something that's really cool that they've been able to pull off. The Energy Flex 1500 is pretty okay. It has a very cool expandability. Each battery is just over 1,000 watt hours, but one of the coolest features is that you can add more MPPT charge controllers, and so realistically, you can make this as big as you want, and each charge controller will let in up to 600 watts. Now again, this is something that I've pre-ordered but has still not shipped out. They're hoping to have it out in the next few months. We'll see. They have had multiple pushbacks. That does use the proprietary EC8 connector, which is starting to become more common, but still not 100% very common. And they have switched away from doing the all parallel connections for their panels and switched to a series connection, which is great. I'm glad that they've made those updates. My biggest gripe is that you can make this a really big system with lots of batteries and lots of solar input, but it's only got a 1500 watt inverter. That's decent, but in today's world, we really should be seeing at least 2000 watts on an inverter. Unfortunately, the way that the math works out is basically as if you were to add as many batteries and charge controllers on the Energy Flex to match what the Titan has, you'll end up spending quite a bit more. So that's something to keep in mind, is it may be lighter when you break it down into those smaller parts, which for some people will be a big thing that's important for them, but it'll still be paying a lot more to get the same amount of power as you would with something like the Titan. Now, the Maxoak Bluetti EV240 has actually beaten the Delta 1300 and the Safari ME, and that's basically because of its battery size. It is actually big enough to run a fridge and freezer through the whole night, or a fridge and a CPAP or whatever those essential devices are. It's very limited on its inverter capacity. If they would have at least put in a 1500 watt inverter, then it would be much better because it would at least stack up with Energy Flex 1500, but have twice the battery capacity. Its peak output on the inverter is quite low. It should be at least 2000, but that's just what it is. And it does allow for over paneling. You can get up to 600 watts of panels connected, but it will limit it down to 400 watts. So it is chargeable in a day as long as it is a perfectly clear sunny day, but it is going to be a stretch to make that work with fridges and freezers and so on running at the same time. The multi-charging capability row here just means that you can use something like a wall charger and solar at the same time. It is a little hefty at 48 pounds and it does not have a lot of outlets, and you do want to charge it up every few months. But for the price, this is one of the easiest to get systems for emergency backup power. The reason it beats the EcoFlow Delta 1300 is basically because it has almost twice the size of battery, even though it has a smaller inverter, but it also has the same solar input. So essentially this is a smaller inverter of the EcoFlow Delta, but has twice the battery and same solar input. With the EcoFlow Delta, the battery is just enough to get through a night with maybe one refrigerator on an outlet timer. It is a 12 volt system, and it does have a draw capacity of 1800 watts, meaning it can draw 1800 watts continuously off the battery until empty. That was one of the things I forgot to mention on the Energy Flex. They say that you will be able to draw 1500 watts down to 20% battery capacity. So for 80% of the battery, you will be able to draw 1500 watts. Outside of that, we don't know. And again, this is still untested. So it's in 5th place, but untested. Going back to the EcoFlow Delta, same solar input as the EV240. And the XT60 connector is a little bit more common than the DC7909. And it only charges in half the time as the EV240 because it has about half the battery. So don't be fooled by this fast charge time because you're still going to have a small battery. But it does have a car charger and it is pretty lightweight at 31 pounds. One of the coolest features is that you can chain up to 6 of them together. This is not commonly practiced because you have to buy a whole new unit. It would have been better if it was possible just to buy expandable batteries, because you're not going to get twice as much inverter capacity. You're only going to get twice as much battery capacity. And so it doesn't make a lot of sense to have to pay for 2 units when you're only really using 1 and the extra battery. And the last here of the top 8 is the Lion Safari ME. This is a great little unit. The only reason it's really down here at the bottom is because of its base battery size. You can get the expandable battery, and it does add quite a bit. It makes it about 3000 watt hours. And it is lithium iron phosphate, so it is going to have a large amount of life cycles, which is great. It has really good solar input for the size. This can be charged in basically an hour and a half and uses common Anderson power pole connectors. It's a little heavy at 46 pounds, but doesn't have a lot of outlets. It really should have more outlets on it, so you'll have to use some sort of power strip with that. And it is expandable with the Lion ME expansion battery. It does have an extra fast wall charger, but due to its weight and battery capacity, it does take number 8 on the list. If it had a larger battery at the same price, it would definitely be further up the list, much more likely to be beating the GoalZero 3000X, because it would be comparable in weight and comparable in battery capacity but would be a much better system because it uses lithium iron phosphate and has the same amount of solar input, but has 5 times the amount of life cycles. So it's going to last 5 times longer than the Goal Zero Yeti 3000X. So really, the Lion Safari ME could potentially be number 4, but you'd have to get the extra battery in order to make it number 4. I really do appreciate you guys coming to the channel. Please do not forget to click that like button down below if you found this video helpful. And of course, click the subscribe button, click the bell, that way you get notified when more videos like this are going to be coming out. It has taken me years to get information like this put together, and especially this bigger chart here, which you can't see all of it right here. So please come to the website, poweredportablesolar.com, to get a full comparison chart, or feel free to email me at info@poweredportablesolar.com, and I'd be happy to share that chart with you, so that way you can see what is best. Solar generators is a buy once, cry once type of product. You are simply not going to get a cheap product that will work for emergency power. It just doesn't work that way. So I didn't want to compare the pricing to sway people in that regard. Obviously, something like the Titan is going to cost more than something like the Delta. That's just how it is because it has more in it. So price is obviously a factor, but we want to compare what this system's actually going to do for you, because there is nothing worse than having gone through a hurricane or a tornado or a blackout or a flood, anything like that, or even just camping or just being out in the RV, anything like that. There's nothing worse than already spending thousands of dollars on a system that's supposed to be good and then it doesn't perform how you need it when you need it. Titan is my absolute favorite, and I look forward to testing the ELEC Hive and the Flex 1500. If you have any questions, please feel free to mention them down below. And of course, email me, go over to the website. I'm happy to help in any way that I can. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you guys later.